I don't know. How do you learn a work ethic without working? I mean, I saw
How about chores?
No, I mean, and I've sent you articles that say, if
Yeah.
you instill this
My
sort
kids
of
do their own laundry since they were fucking 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They do their own shit. They know how to cook.
Mm-hmm.
They are what they are.
You think your kids could work for somebody else, or do you think that they need to be entrepreneurs?
I really think they could work for somebody else. At least Joey and Miranda.
Okay.
Nick, I do too. I mean, Nick wants to be an entrepreneur. He's headed down that path for a long time. So, Nick has had jobs where he worked and was successful at them. So,
well, I feel like,
I think independent thinkers and kids who are brought up to be independent thinkers and who are brought up believing that they can do anything, because I think people can do anything they want to do.
But isn't that part of the problem? Isn't that one of the talking points, is that you're dealing with a generation, especially when you're talking about millennials, that were told you can be anything you want to be in life and whatever, and given participation trophies and all of these other things.
Yeah, see, the problem with that is they're being told they can be anything in life they want to be without how to do it. Okay? How to do it is hard work and knowledge and continuing education and learning. Okay? That's how you do it. You can't just be anything you want because you say it.
I know, but Len,
I want to be a cat.
Yeah, but to the point, this has been a slow degradation of just American culture and society.
School systems, food.
But look at you. You pulled your
elections.
You pulled your kids out of public school and put them in private school because you didn't feel the public education system was getting the job done, right? Unfortunately, the more parents that do that and find an alternative option, right, the less funding goes into our public schools. Like, they're closing schools. I'm not blaming you for it. But what I'm saying is we've created these other options that are only accessible to those with either means.
There's no one in the government high up that wants educated people. Educated people.
People have to want to be educated, though,
I understand
on top of that.
But you can't, when you have, Kimmy.
You make excuses. Like,
a high percentage of the people in this country don't know that. They don't have the motivation. They weren't taught that by their parents. They don't have
But who do you blame for that? How do you, here's the deal. The people coming into this country, if you talk to a lot of first-generation immigrants, what is one of the things that they're coming here for? Education. You have people on your team that came to this country for education. Whether it was higher education, or not, they came here to access the best education in the world.
Yeah.
I will still stand on that as far as higher education in this country goes. We already know we are not there when it comes to our, elementary, middle, high school.
And I even think the higher education, could use probably an overhaul, beyond the STEM and programs that are.
Excuse me, what?
I think the higher education.
In what way, Len?
In the openness of our schools to offer viewpoints.
These are adults. These are adults. You have no business telling any grown individual what they can and cannot study and what they should.
I'm not telling any person they can't study or can or
so
cannot
if I'm
study.
Paying to access education, I should be what?
But I think the professors should be held to a higher standard. I think the professors shouldn't be able to instill their beliefs on.
I'm an adult. At what point do I start being given the ability to think and formulate opinions for myself? I can take any professor's class.
At any point, Kimmy, if you were brought up that way.
So once again, you want to control how people think by controlling who we allow.
I want
to me.
Kids from an early age to be taught to question and ask questions and go, that doesn't quite sound right,
Okay, but guess what? Them saying that doesn't quite sound right could be directed right at you.
Yeah.
The same way it could be directed at me. And that's where I think a lot of American parents take issue right now. They're sending their kids off to college and their kids come back and no longer agree with their parents' point of view. And now all of a sudden they've been indoctrinated, they've been brainwashed, or they were just exposed to things outside of what you spent their entire childhood and young adulthood instilling in them. And that's part of the reason why you send them off to school, right? Is to have new experiences,
to open
meet
their
different
mind.
people, to expand their horizons. You just hope that they've been given critical thinking skills and that they can go and do their due diligence. But again, it's accountability. At some point, you have to sit there and say, where do I draw the line with placing the blame on these, exterior factors, and where do I start to hold individuals accountable? When we talk about education, whatever your children are being given in public school, and I will forever believe that our public schools should be top tier, best in the world, you have to care about that as a parent. Your extended family, whoever interacts with your children, has to prioritize education. You can't.
So this is a whole thing, Kimmy. You have parents, in when did we go from one parent working households to two parent working households? Because that was the first step. When you go to a two parent working household, you now don't have that second parent involved in the raising of your kids as much. So you're taking that second parent out of the equation for 8 hours a day, right?
8 hours a day. No, they weren't in their children's life for 8 hours.
Their focus was not on a job; it was on their child and their school and whatever else.
But the teachers had them for the 8. If we're talking about school age,
I understand that, but just because the teachers have them, the parents still have to be involved to know what's going on.
I understand that fully. My mom was a single parent. She raised me. She busted her ass. She cared about my education.
Yeah.
She cared about what I did in the times when I wasn't with her. She cared about the places where she dropped me off and what they were teaching me, right? I told you I went to summer camp at a very young age because she was like, you're not going to sit in a daycare center and do nothing, play with building
see, I had
blocks.
the opposite. My mom was concerned about keeping a roof over our heads and feeding us.
I mean, my mother, again, my mother was concerned with those same exact things.
Yeah.
She just also but again, that was how my mother was raised.
My mom trusted the school system.
I know, but I'm not saying my mother.
No, you know what I'm saying, though. I'm more involved even in private school with my kids
I get that,
than my parents were.
But at some point, that has it has to fall on the individuals too. When we talk about health, when we talk about lifestyle, when we talk about choices, when we talk about education, it keeps coming back to that. And you continue to I feel like, not that you make excuses, but you kind of make excuses.
Do you think that more
people.
people in this country believe that they could never make it? Do you believe that this generation believes more than the previous generation that they can't buy a house?
Yes.
Or they won't be able to do
Yes.
this? Or they won't be able to do that? So when you have a perpetual negativity on everything about your life, what do you expect to happen?
But you realize why they feel that way, though, because a large swath of them watched their parents lose their homes in 2008.
In 1972, my mom paid $36,000 for her home. Okay? By the time I was old enough to buy a home, that home was $150,000. Okay? So do you think I said, oh, fuck, I'm never going to be able to buy a home? My mom, that was $32,000, and now it's $150,000. Do you think I woke up and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do this? No. The problem is the coddling of our kids, the coddling of our country, and the constant, you can't do this. America, the land of the free. I would like any person in this country that doesn't believe this is the greatest country to go live in another country just for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, see how other people live. See what other people care about. People here care more about their phone than they do about their food.
Yeah, but that's on them. And that's what I keep trying to say to you, Len. I don't understand.
That's on this. That's on this 20 pieces of information that we get fed every day.
But that's also because we prioritize convenience over our health, over our mental wellness, over our children, over our all of it, Len.
We're lazy.
That's what I said an hour ago.
Yeah, I know.
But that is not that. and
none
I
of this
agree.
is none of this is the point of why our country is getting stolen, by the way. But
You don't think that the laziness has any the laissez-faire attitude of let me just sit back and it'll take care of itself, or it's always
Yeah.
going to be that way, or
nobody cares. Nobody
where
nobody
did that
thinks they can
come
make a
from
difference.
though? Like that's the bigger issue, Lenny. We talk about the information's out there. People know it. People are talking about it. People have been banging the drum for a very long time about a lot of this, right? But it takes effort. It takes energy. It takes time that people frankly don't want to fucking allocate to doing this. They'd rather go spend $3,500. They'd rather go spend their tax refund on some fucking Apple VR goggles and sit on their fucking couch and take themselves to the pyramids, or get there in Fortnite and, disappear for a few hours. They'd rather sign up for another subscription service and watch, another sitcom or whatever, reruns of fucking Friends or whatever it is. Like, that to me is the bigger testament to where, like, this is not the America that it once was. Like, and we have people in government that are actively trying to subdue that America, like, that are actively trying to suppress things that made us American. Like, when we talk about protesting on campuses and things of that nature, like, you have state governments, the one right here in Florida, that are trying to curb your ability or hinder your ability to do that. College campuses were where the democratic process
the left
used to
and
take
the right is stepping on all of the amendments. Both of them. They're both of them. Both sides.
So how can you can't be mad at people not being patriotic when the ones that are trying to be are literally having their rights taken away from them? Like, you said it first. You said people that question their government, people that are that want to force the government's hand to do right by what it says. That is being truly American, right? That's being truly patriotic. So when you look at the women who are going and they're marching and they're fighting for their reproductive rights, right? Mm-hmm. And then being shit on, and then having it taken, one step further in this state and another step further in this state, and the vote never being given to the people to vote on these things. That should be
voted on federally.
That should be voted on by every person in every state.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if that was on a federal ballot.
It doesn't even have to be on a federal ballot, because then now you're imposing. What I'm saying is, just give the folks in Florida or the folks in Texas or the folks in other places the right to vote on the things that you're implementing in their state. But that's not what's happening. But what I'm saying is, if as an American I sit here, whether I'm pro this way or that way, if I'm just pro-American and I'm looking at it and saying,
this is where people have the biggest problem between their constitutional rights and the rights of the state or the government. This is the biggest problem, because there shouldn't be a fine line, but there is, between a democracy and a republic. And in the republic, the people who are in charge can't do things that alienate half of the country. They're not allowed to. There has to be a check and balance in that. In a democracy, that's not it. In a democracy, 51%. If 51% of the people in this country say we're no longer open for business, boom, the other 49% are fucked. That's just the way it works in a democracy. That's not the way it works in the republic. And if you look at those documents for real, how they were written so that the Florida government can't just fucking say, this is it. But nobody pushes that. Nobody says that.
Well, no, because we also
everybody says we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a republic.
No, we also protected states' rights, and then each state has its own constitution.
I understand, but it doesn't supersede the Constitution of the United States.
Well, I mean, the Constitution of the United States really did prioritize state rights.
Yes, I understand that, but not in instances where you could dominate the people who live there. It gave every person the right to equal treatment and whatever, an equal voice. Mm-hmm. And that's not what's being done. People are, it's been done so many times in legislation and legislative acts in states where they just pass shit that affects all the regular people, but they don't care.
No, it happens all the time.
Yes, all the time.
In
It's
particular.
like it doesn't go up for a vote. Vote on the real stuff. Make a bill just about one thing. Don't make a bill all these things and then throw in, well, you're going to buy me a Lambo. You got to make that bill.
But again, I think part of the reason why that has become, such a common practice is because people don't care. Like when they go in, they're not.
When you were in school, were you taught about government and how it works?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think kids today are?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
I challenge you to ask.
I know that they have mock elections in Broward County.
I challenge you to ask any kid nowadays what a bill is, what it has to go through to become a law. Ask them. We knew that from cartoons. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like that now. Having an election, having a mock election.
Again.
Having a mock election is,
you generalize, and I know
you run, you vote, you get elected. That's one thing.
There are for sure high schools in this country, public high schools that are teaching the entire process. There are kids that run in student government. There are organizations. Unfortunately, whether that's being prioritized across the board or not, I can guarantee you.
I learned in kindergarten. You did too. You did too.
Lenny, I just, you say these, but again, so to your point, where is the outrage? Where's the demand for it? And I say that because
it's here.
No,
it's here.
What, on this couch?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the bigger problem is, do you know how few people actually even fill out their entire ballot when they go to vote?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how few people have actually read? You can get mock ballots. You can see everything that's going to be on your ballot. You can actually bring it in with you. It's like a cheat sheet for voting day, right? I always bring mine. The judges are on there. You can do background research on everybody running. You know what I'm saying? I know for a fact many people in a presidential year, in a presidential election cycle too, that's the only thing they're filling out are the top 4 boxes usually, right? Mm-hmm. Like you pick your president and your vice president. Normally it's a governor. Like if there's big ones, maybe your senators are on there. After that, they're leaving the rest blank and walking out. Again, that's your homesteading acts. That's your, things that are going into your state constitution. And those are the things that really matter. But again, the reason why I think it's become such common practice is because for a long time, it took longer to get the information to everybody, right? Like you'd have a congressional vote in Washington and we might not hear the outcome of it for a day or two, right? If you go pre-internet, now we live in a world of a 24-hour news cycle. There's media present while the vote is happening. They're being recorded. It's on C-SPAN. They're airing the whole thing. We know how everybody voted. But I would love to see the viewership for, a vote day in the Senate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
2 fucks.
But you just said it. People don't give 2 fucks. And this is the shit that is literally impacting.
Because they're disheartened with their government. They don't believe they're going to make a difference. But it's people, this last few generations equates their government with their country. And it's having pride in the United States and being a United States citizen and trusting your government, I'm going to say it again, is 2 different things. It's 2 different things. And that's why I feel this country's getting stolen from us, because they're robbing us financially. They're, we pay 50% in taxes. We pay 50% in taxes. Mm-hmm. We get taxed on everything. Have 50% of your income goes to taxes, Kimmy. So do you think if you had 50%, let's just say if you had 30% more of your income, okay? We pay 20% in taxes. If you had 30% more of your income, do you think you'd feel like you were in this position? Figure it out. For someone who makes $100,000 a year, That's $30,000 more. Do you think they'd be in a better position if they had that extra $30,000? Maybe. This is what our government has done to us. They've allowed this to happen.
So
it started in the early 1900s, and it's continued. And now it's getting to the point where they're about to just pull the fucking rug out from everybody.
But you say that the government has done it to us, but so has capitalism. Like, you can't...
Unchecked capitalism has done it to us. Unchecked. Yes.
So with that being said, but again, this is the cycle that we find ourselves in, Len, because the people who benefit from unchecked capitalism, they have power, they have a voice, and they definitely vote. We know this, right? And they rub elbows and they cut checks and they do the things that are necessary to make sure that legislation swings in their favor. And until the American people say, listen, we need the government to step in, right? And to legislate in our favor. When we talk about basic staples, right? If you want to talk about gas, you want to talk, and this is just an example. I'm not sitting here saying this is what should happen. But we talk about the price, people were bread, eggs, milk, things like your staples, your necessities. There should never be a time when a carton of eggs is $10, right? That's kind of wild. But if I were to sit here and say, I need the government to come in and just set price limits on some of these things, the same way we subsidize certain industries in this country that do not have comparative advantage to other nations around the world at producing things, right? But we make sure, because they're American industries, that we prop them up, that we keep them protected. Why can't we protect the American people, right? Like, when you talk about housing,
nobody cares about the people.
But the people have to, and this is the problem, because the people that are benefiting off of the working class American having to pay $10 for eggs, or the quote unquote slumlords that are just waiting to kick out the person who's got the lease that's only $2,000 so they can replace him with somebody that's ready to pay $4,500.
You say, we get all this information out. We have all this information at our fingertips. We don't really, because 330 million people in this this country, how many people can you actually reach as a voice of reason as a citizen? How many? You can only reach as many as those 20 platforms allow you.
But Len, you also realize that we have Americans who vote against their own interest. Like,
absolutely. Because again, they're told that that's the right thing to do. They're told.
But how wild is that? Imagine the person that's living below the poverty line, right? That benefits from Medicaid, from Medicare, from disability, any numerous social programs that we offer in this country, that got stimulus checks and things of that nature, voting against that because it's un-American. Wait, what? I'm so confused. But you're cashing the check. You're taking advantage. You wouldn't have your diabetes medication without it. You wouldn't be able to afford the, sleep apnea respirator if you didn't have it. But yet you will vote against or with the people who want to take all of that away and pad the pockets of the folks who could afford all of that shit outright and then some on their own, without insurance, without Medicaid, without Medicare, like without any of these things. Like, Americans don't even act in their own best interest because, again, they're confused about what it means, I think, to be American, or because they're like, oh, it's only going to those foreigners or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, do you not understand? Like, your kid gets free lunch. What the are you talking about, you nut job? Like, it's just, it's crazy to me that is where we're at. And that's why I say I think it's very difficult to pull the politics and the patriotism apart, because you've got folks who are so wrapped up in what it is to be American, and it all just kind of gets gets jumbled together, right? Like we can sit here and I've said it a million times. Do I think that we have lived up to what our Constitution says historically? No. But do I think that if we did, we would hands down? Yes. I think what it says is incredible, right? Like when you read the documents and when you go over it and you're like, this is an amazing world to live in, right? Unfortunately, we've dropped the ball historically. Like America's never been a perfect place, ever.
And probably never will be.
Nothing's ever going to be perfect.
There never will be a perfect place. That goes without saying. But
you have to be okay with folks bucking the system a little bit. My bigger issue, again, comes with people who won't do anything to actively change it. Like, if it's being stolen from us, what are the steps?
Well, how do you feel about Elon buying Twitter and opening it up?
I never complained about that.
No, but I'm asking.
And opening it up. Opinion. Have you been on Twitter recently?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you do know that, like, the hatefulness is at, like, an all-time high, which is, you know, take it with a grain of salt.
The freedom of speech is at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. I get it. But that's somebody who took initiative and did something.
Mm-hmm. And what did it do? Like, how did that better the country? Do you think it bettered the country?
It at least showed people that there's two sides of a story.
Okay, and that there's a whole lot of hate and bigotry and xenophobia.
That there is in this world. Yes, that there is. That there is crazy hate and bigotry.
Okay, but then you have a presidential candidate, person who's running, saying this has never been a racist country. Do you like from a party that would be most likely to vote for like? It's wild to me. So you put the information in their face, and then they sit here and they still try to spin it.
But
like
why is all that hate there? Why is all that perpetuated?
It's always.
Why is it always perpetuated? Why are people taught that? Why are people taught? You know, kids don't become racist because
no, they don't. But
they're taught
because it's always been. It's always been a part of the foundation and the fabric of this country. I think of societies around the world, right? Like that's a
so then everybody's a racist.
It's not about everybody being a racist. It's that is there xenophobia? Is there, you know, are there nations that are extremely ethnocentric? Like Japan, right? Has historically, if you look at the makeup of its population, pretty Japanese. You know, like we, on the other hand, are a hodgepodge of people. Like that is what this country. So there's a little bit of irony in that. You know, if you go to Sweden, if you go to Denmark, if you go to Norway, you know, again, these are places that have very different, I'm sure, immigration policies, things of that nature. You know, they've kind of not stayed off the grid, but their populations look a little more homogenous, let's say, right? We see it. We talk about it when you have the Olympics.
Yeah.
We're the only country when we come walking through.
Yeah.
Awesome. Brazil looks is all over the place too. But America, you've got Johnsons and you've got Chins and you've got, you know, everything in between. Mm-hmm. Every color, every creed. Like, but to me, that's what makes America, good, bad, and otherwise. Like I've told you this repeatedly. I'm here for all of it. And if we can become the society that we have always claimed to be truly, that's my goal, right? Let's be who we say we are. And I feel like that's where this younger generation, like, I think I'm just a little bit more forgiving. I think this younger generation, the ones who are active and who are vocal, are just less forgiving. They're on some like, you're full of shit. This isn't how it is. This is all bullshit. You've been telling a fucking lie. Let's stand on truth, right? Like that's part of it. So if you take that as being anti-American or anti-patriotic, you know, then you can't really say that being patriotic is to call your government out and to hold, you know, hold their feet to a flame. Like, because that's what they're doing.
But that's fine. But all of these things are being put in play so that we don't look at the big picture, so that we don't look at the deeper, more.
But if we continue to be sheeple,
detrimental things.
Okay, but Len, then that's on us. If we continue to get caught, and that's again a problem with American society. We would rather stay on the surface, right, than do the deep dive. And it's funny because people would have to say, you're a sheep. So I'm a sheep because I want to sit here and engage in this conversation. Like, I don't even know what that means anymore. I'm a sheep. Okay, what do you want from me? How do I change being a sheep? What's the next step? Is it revolution? Is it anarchy? Like, I don't want to live in the Handmaid's Tale, guys. I don't want to live in Gilead. I don't want some randos taking control of our tanks, rolling them down the street, pulling up medical records, deciding who gets to live in whose house. Like, I don't want to live in 1940 Germany or Poland or any of those places. I don't even want to live in, late 19th, well, not even late 19th, but like late 20th, early 21st century, Central and South America in a lot of cases, where you're dealing with regimes and dictatorships and all kinds of overthrowing of the government and mad instability. But historically, what we got going on in our country doesn't last. That's the scarier part of the conversation. And every time Lenny sends me something that talks about civil war, like I know I push back and I get really defensive, but it's because I do know that historically democracies, democratic republics don't work because at some point somebody wants more power. At some point somebody feels disenfranchised, and there's always going to be more poor people, always going to be more poor people than there are rich people. And as soon as somebody comes in and realizes how to harness the power of the poor,
they've already done
what do they do? But what do? They
exploit it.
They exploit it, and usually that's what leads to Ask anybody. Poor people are powerful. They've overthrown more governments than anybody. And guess what? They still end up fucking poor.
Yep.
Because whatever they overthrow just gets replaced with more greedy ass bastards. Right? Is that fact? So again, what all of you out there that are ready for civil war, that are ready for revolution, who's replacing what we already got? Because at the end of the day, we all do have a vote. We all do have a voice.
But again, we're voting on the two pieces of shit that are put in front of us.
Again, so how do we get to a place where we not redesign the system? Because like I said, in theory,
take the money out of it.
You can take the money out of it, but again, but you also need new people.
Yeah,
you need people that are actively engaged, civically engaged.
That will create new people, because when people start running for government because they want to make a difference and not because they want to make a dollar, it will change.
But you know what, though? You can make a difference right now and in a small way. Just by getting off your ass and voting. And I say that just because I want people to get engaged in the process. Right? It's not going to change who's running. It's not going to change who we've got to choose from right now. But the more engaged, the more people that take that first step, the more people that decide to bring their young children along with them to the polls this year, the more people that sit down around their dinner table or their breakfast bar or in the car on the way to school or whatever it is, that engage their kids in these conversations and explain to them why, if you're angry with where we're at as a country, explain to your kids why and how important it is to get involved and what you'd like to see. Start those conversations, because that's the problem. Right? You had generations not that long ago that couldn't wait to cast a vote. People who had just gotten here from places where they never had a say in what happened to them. And do you think they would have missed an election? It's like, even when you talk to some of these older, elderly people now that don't drive, don't have a license, they get identification for one reason and one reason only. It's so that they can vote.
Yeah.
And they make sure that their community center or that their neighbor does what? Takes them to the poll. Because most of them won't even vote by mail-in. They want to actually go and cast their ballot because it's so ingrained in them.
It's tradition.
Do you know what I'm saying? But to your point, Len, that has slowly dissolved. It's gone away. Parents stopped taking their kids. Like, I think you're lucky if you get most Americans to vote in a presidential election. They're not voting in midterms for the most part. We know that because we see the fall off. It's how you can vote one party into president, into office, and 2 years later, the entire Congress switches over, right? Because the folks who voted in the president are like, hey, we're good. I got 4 more years, right? We know this. So it's just that to me is the more frustrating part, and it's where you begin, because if we don't start taking back that power, how do you ever implement legislation that changes how corporations are dealt with, that changes the tax structure? Like, these are all things that are right now ingrained in your constitutions, right? Like, your city government votes on different taxes, right? Like in Miami Beach, they passed do you remember it's like a 1 cent tax? Not Miami Beach, but it's in Miami. And it was for the homeless trust. But it was voted on by the people, and it's like 1 cent or something like that of every bill goes to the or
State, county, sales tax. Yeah.
But it helped take the homeless population on the streets from close to 10,000 in the 80s to under 1,000 in 2024.
Yeah.
Right? So there are good taxes that we pay. There are good things and that you have a say over. The Children's Trust is another organization that the people vote on. But imagine, we vote on these kind of things that are providing invaluable services, but when it comes to reproductive rights and other things, we don't get a say in that. So again, until you start actively engaging and realizing what is and what isn't on the ballot and what is incensing you about the process, you don't have a leg to stand on. Like, you don't have a leg to stand on at all. And you're not going to get any change. You're not going, like, we talk about the foods. Why are we not, as a constituency, actively voting to get this shit banned? Like, why are we not using our voice to say, hey, in Florida, you can't use these pesticides anymore. We don't want that, because here's the deal. Whether you eat the food or not, it ends up in your water. It ends up in your land. It ends up in, your backyards, in your canal, whatever. It gets to you. Everything that they spray in the air, doesn't matter if they're spraying it in Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miccosukee, wherever. It ends up affecting you. So why are we not actively taking steps to get that changed? You want your kids in PE? Like, first of all, stop signing them out, like, or giving them permission to tell them to sit down. But that's parental shit. Like, that's on parents. Teach your kid to, no, you're going to sweat your fucking hair out. Like, I don't care. Like, you take a shower at school. I don't know. Sorry. I know this has been longer than it was supposed to be, but
that's okay.
I just keep going back to accountability. At some point, we have to start blaming everybody else and saying, okay, listen, we can't claim to be these brilliant people and this advanced society and all of these things. And then when bad shit happens, we already know his name.
I think as much power as we have, I think we're too divided to put that power together. And I think we're deliberately divided on too many polarizing topics that, in the whole scheme of things, if we all came together, would probably fix themselves. And that's all I got to say about that.
Until next time. I don't even have like a closing argument for you, because I can't disagree with that. But one way you can try to find your way to the middle is to tune into the ManTFup podcast. We're absolutely everywhere. Like, subscribe, share, follow, drop your comments if you agree with Len and think our country's being stolen and you have ways in which you think we can fix it. Feel free to weigh in. If you heard anything else that you just feel a way about, I'm sure you'll comment, because you always do. And don't be surprised when I respond back. But yeah, we'll see you next time. It's ManTFup podcast.
Peace.